Picture this: a single, flickering moth caught in the glow of a porch light, beating its fragile wings against the glass, desperate for something it can't name. That's how I've felt lately. Trapped in a life I built with my own hands, unable to break free from the invisible barriers holding me in place. My name is Marissa, and at 41, I'm standing at the edge of something I can't yet see, staring into a mirror that reflects a woman I'm not sure I recognize anymore. My hair's streaked with gray I don't bother to dye, my hands rough from years of scrubbing dishes and folding dreams into smaller, more manageable shapes. I've been married to Ethan for almost 20 years, a span of time that feels both like a lifetime and a fleeting moment. We've carved out a life together in this suburban home, a beige box with creaking floors and walls that seem to soak up every word we don't say. Ethan and I, we're partners, friends even, bound by the kind of history that comes from shared mortgages and late-night arguments over nothing at all. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being lovers. It's not that I hate him, God no. It's not even that we fight. It's worse in a way. It's the slow, quiet neglect, the way life's endless routines have buried whatever fire we once had under layers of dust. I remember how he used to sit with me on our old couch, the one with the sagging cushions, tracing lazy circles on my palm with his thumb while we watched the world go dark outside. Those moments felt like promises. Now, our mornings are marked by the clink of coffee mugs on the kitchen table, the silence between us thicker than the steam rising from our cups. I look at him sometimes, trying to find that younger man in the lines of his face, but all I see is exhaustion etched into his skin. Ethan's a man of quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be felt. His hazel eyes are always a little tired now, like he's carrying a weight I can't see. I catch him often, standing by the window in our living room, staring out at the neatly trimmed lawns of our neighborhood as if he's searching for something he lost long ago. Maybe it's the same thing I'm missing, though neither of us knows how to name it. Our home is a museum of the mundane, laundry folded in precise stacks on the couch, bills piled on the counter next to a half-empty fruit bowl, the hum of the refrigerator, a constant reminder of how ordinary everything has become. But beneath it all, there's an emptiness that gnaws at me, a hollow space where laughter and late-night whispers used to live. The walls here, they've absorbed too much of our silence, too many unspoken thoughts piling up like clutter in an attic. There's someone else who drifts on the edges of our story, though I've only met him a handful of times. Julian, Ethan's. It was just another evening in our beige box of a home, the kind where time seems to stretch thin, almost invisible. I was slouched on our worn-out couch, the one that's seen better days, its cushions sagging under the weight of too many years. The TV flickered in the background, muted, casting pale shadows across the room, a silent witness to the stillness between Ethan and me. I was half lost in thought, my fingers tracing the frayed edge of a throw pillow, when Ethan turned to me. His movement was slow, deliberate, like he'd been mulling over his words for hours. "I want you to visit my childhood home," he said, his voice soft but heavy, like it carried something ancient. "See it. Bring me back some of its quiet." I blinked, caught completely off guard. My head tilted instinctively, my brows knitting together as I searched his face for some kind of explanation. What did he mean by that? Why now? Why me? But Ethan's expression gave nothing away, just a faint, sad smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, his hazel eyes distant, like he was looking through me to somewhere else. I opened my mouth to ask, to press for clarity, but the words didn't come. Instead, I just nodded, more out of curiosity than any sense of obligation. There was something in the way he asked, a quiet desperation I couldn't ignore. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, smoothing it out with trembling fingers before handing it to me. An address, scrawled in his familiar, messy handwriting, for a small town 3 hours away. The next morning, I started getting ready for the trip. I packed a small overnight bag, tossing in a change of clothes, a toothbrush, and a book I probably wouldn't read. I moved through the motions mechanically, my mind buzzing with questions I didn't have answers to. Why was this so important to him? What was I supposed to find there? I checked the car's oil, topped off the gas, and made sure the tires were good for the drive. Every task felt like a small delay, a way to avoid the growing knot of unease in my chest. When it was time to leave, I found Ethan in the kitchen, staring into his coffee like it held some kind of secret. I leaned down to kiss him goodbye, and his embrace lingered just a second too long, his arms tight around me like he was afraid to let go. "Be safe," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, and I felt a shiver run through me, though I couldn't tell why. The drive was long and hypnotic, the hum of the highway a steady drone beneath my thoughts. Autumn had painted the world in fiery hues, blurs of crimson and gold whipping past my window as I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter than necessary. The further I got from home, the more I felt like I was stepping into something unknown, like I was crossing a threshold I couldn't see. As I pulled up to Ethan's childhood home, the gravel crunching under my tires, the house loomed ahead like a relic from a forgotten time. It was a weathered 2-story structure, its paint peeling in long, curling strips, the windows staring blankly at the overcast sky. I stepped out of the car, the chill of the late afternoon biting at my skin, and that's when I saw him, Julian, Ethan's brother, standing on the sagging porch with a set of keys dangling from his long fingers. I'd only met him a few times over the years, brief encounters at family gatherings where we exchanged polite nods and little else. But seeing him now, in this place, felt different. Heavier somehow. Julian is nothing like Ethan. Where Ethan is all steady calm, a rock you can lean on even when he's quiet, Julian carries a restless energy, a sharpness that cuts through the air around him. He's tall, lean, almost too thin, like life has stretched him out over the years. His dark hair falls over one eye in a careless sweep, and there's a quiet intensity in the way he moves, every gesture precise, deliberate, as if he's always holding something back. His eyes, a piercing gray unlike Ethan's warm hazel, flicked over me as I approached, assessing, maybe judging. I felt a prickle of unease under that gaze, a wall between us I couldn't quite name. "Marissa," he said, his voice low, clipped as he extended the keys. "Didn't expect you to actually show up." There was no warmth in his tone, just a formality that felt like a barrier, keeping me at arm's length. We didn't talk much at first. He led me inside, the door creaking on rusty hinges, and the musty smell of old wood and damp fabric hit me like a wave. The house felt alive in a way I hadn't expected. Every groan of the floorboards and flicker of shadow in the corners making my skin crawl. Julian suggested we eat something before I settled in, and I agreed, more out of a need to fill the awkward silence than actual hunger. We ended up in the dim kitchen, sitting at a scarred wooden table under a single flickering bulb that cast long, jittery shadows across the walls. Dinner was simple: some cheese, a loaf of crusty bread, and a bottle of red wine he pulled from a dusty cabinet. The clink of our glasses was the only sound for a long stretch, the silence between us thick, almost suffocating. I watched him cut a piece of cheese with a small knife, his movements slow, almost too careful, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching me just as closely, though he barely looked up. Then, out of nowhere, he spoke, his voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. This house remembers more than both of you." The words hung in the air, heavy and cryptic, and I felt a chill snake down my spine, cold fingers tracing the back of my neck. I stared at him, my glass halfway to my lips, trying to decipher what he meant. Both of who? Ethan and me? Or someone else? His face gave nothing away, just that same unreadable intensity, his gray eyes catching the weak light like storm clouds. I wanted to ask, to demand an explanation, but something in his posture, the way he leaned back in his chair, told me he wouldn't give me one. Instead, I took a sip of the wine, the bitter taste lingering on my tongue, and let the silence settle back over us like dust. Night fell quickly after that, the house growing darker, colder, as if it were swallowing the last traces of daylight. I retreated to a small bedroom upstairs, the one Julian pointed out as Ethan's old room. The space felt frozen in time, faded crayon drawings still tacked to the walls, their colors washed out, but somehow vivid in their nostalgia. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, the springs creaking under my weight, and tried to process the day, the strange weight of being here, in this place that held so much of Ethan's past. But my thoughts kept circling back to Julian's words, that eerie warning about I wake up to the gray light of dawn seeping through the thin curtains, my body heavy against the narrow bed in Ethan's old room. The sheets are tangled around my legs, twisted like the thoughts that kept me restless through the night. There's a faint scent of pine lingering in the air, probably from the trees outside, but it's tainted now, mixed with something bitter that I can taste on the back of my tongue. Guilt, sharp and unrelenting. I lie there for a moment, staring at the cracked ceiling, feeling the weight of what happened last night settle into my bones. It's not just a memory. It's a living thing, clawing at the edges of my mind, refusing to let me look away from the truth of what I've done. I push myself up, the springs groaning under me, and swing my legs over the side of the bed. My feet hit the cold floor, and I shiver, not just from the chill, but from the hollow ache inside me. I don't even know where Julian is, whether he's still in the house or if he slipped away in the dark hours after everything unraveled. I don't want to know, not yet. Instead, I stand and shuffle out of the room, the floorboards creaking under my weight as I move through the hallway in the pale morning light. The house feels different now, heavier, like it's watching me, judging me with every step. I pass a cracked mirror hanging crooked on the wall, and I catch a glimpse of myself. My eyes are hollow, shadowed, like I've aged a decade in a single night. I look away quickly, unable to face that reflection for long. There are details I didn't notice before, things that jump out at me now as I wander through the stillness. Old photographs line a shelf in the living room, their edges yellowed with time. I pause, my fingers brushing the dust off one of them. It's Ethan and Julian as boys, maybe 8 or 9, standing side by side in front of this very house. Ethan's grin is wide, unguarded, his arm slung around Julian's shoulder. Julian's smile is smaller, tighter, like even then he was holding something back. I stare at their frozen faces, wondering how much of who they are now was already there in those young, innocent versions of themselves. The thought twists something inside me, a pang of regret for the mess I've made of things. I keep moving, needing to do something, anything, to distract myself from the storm in my head. I end up in the kitchen, the same scarred wooden table from last night staring back at me like a silent accusation. I can still see us sitting there, the clink of wine glasses, the tension that hung between Julian and me before everything spiraled out of control. My hands tremble as I reach for the old coffee pot on the counter, fumbling with the grounds and water, the mundane task feeling like a lifeline. The machine gurgles to life, the sound too loud in the oppressive quiet, and I stand there, watching the dark liquid drip into the pot, my mind replaying fragments of the night. Shame burns hot in my chest. But there's something else too, something I can't name, a strange, unplaceable satisfaction that makes me feel even worse. How could I feel anything but regret after betraying Ethan like this? And yet, there it is, a flicker of something I don't want to acknowledge. I pour the coffee into a chipped mug, the steam rising in lazy curls, and sit at the table, my fingers wrapping around the warmth as if it could anchor me. But it doesn't. I'm adrift, caught between the person I thought I was and the person I've become in the space of a few reckless hours. I don't cry, though. I can't. There's a numbness spreading through me, like I've stepped outside myself, watching this all unfold from a distance. I sip the coffee, bitter and too hot, and let my gaze drift to the window. The world outside is still, the trees motionless under a sky that's more gray than blue, and I wonder if Ethan's awake yet. If he's standing by our window at home, staring out at the world with that same distant look in his hazel eyes. I can't sit here any longer, stewing in this suffocating silence. The weight of what I've done is crushing me, pressing down on my chest until I can barely breathe. I need to face it, to say it out loud, to let the truth spill out, no matter how much it hurts. My fingers tighten around the mug for a moment before I set it down with a dull thud on the scarred table. I stand, my legs shaky, and reach for my phone, which I'd left on the counter last night. The screen is cold against my palm, a stark reminder of the reality I've been avoiding. I have to call Ethan. I have to tell him. I pace the kitchen for a minute, the floorboards groaning under my weight, my heart hammering so hard I'm sure it's going to crack my ribs. My thumb hovers over his name in my contacts, trembling as I try to find the courage to press it. What am I even going to say? How do you confess something like this? But I can't keep hiding, can't let this fester inside me any longer. I tap the screen, the call connecting with a faint click, and I lift the phone to my ear, my breath shallow, ragged. Each ring feels like an eternity, a slow torture as I wait for him to pick up. My free hand grips the edge of the counter, knuckles whitening, as if it's the only thing keeping me upright. Finally, there's a soft rustle on the other end, and then his voice, low and familiar, cuts through the static. "Marissa?" I open my mouth, but nothing comes out at first. My throat is tight, like it's closing in on itself, and I have to swallow hard to force the words through. "Ethan," I manage, my voice barely above a whisper, already cracking under the strain. I take a shaky breath, my eyes squeezing shut as I brace myself for what I'm about to say. I was with your brother." The words tumble out, raw and jagged, like poison I've been holding in my veins for too long. They burn as they leave me, each syllable heavier than the last, and I feel a wave of nausea roll through me the moment they're out in the open. I can't take them back now. They're there, hanging between us, a truth I can't unsay. There's a long, agonizing pause on the other end. The silence is deafening, thicker than any I've ever felt, and I can almost hear the weight of it pressing down on him too. I imagine his face, the way I've seen it 1,000 times before, when he's hurt or angry. His jaw tightening, the muscles in his cheek twitching as he clenches his teeth, his hazel eyes narrowing just slightly as he processes the blow. I picture him standing by that window in our living room, the one he always stares out of, his broad shoulders hunched as if he's carrying the world. My chest aches with the thought, a sharp, piercing pain that makes me want to take it all back, to rewind time and undo everything. But I can't. I just stand there, frozen in this decrepit kitchen, waiting for him to say something, anything. When he finally speaks, his voice is flat, almost hollow, like he's drained of every emotion he might have felt. I know. Those two words hit me like a punch, knocking the air out of my lungs. I blink, my grip on the phone tightening until my fingers ache, my mind scrambling to make sense of what he just said. He knows? How could he know? My lips part, but I can't form a coherent thought, let alone a sentence. My heart is racing now, a frantic drumbeat in my ears, and before I can stop myself, the question bursts out of me, sharp and desperate. Did you plan this? My voice rises, trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief, the accusation hanging heavy in the air. I don't even know if I believe it myself, but the words are out now, fueled by the chaos swirling inside me. There is another long silence, and I can hear my own breathing, ragged and uneven, echoing in my ear. Ethan doesn't answer right away, and that hesitation cuts deeper than any words could. My mind races, spinning through possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. Did he send me here knowing something might happen? Was this some kind of test? Or worse, a way to push me away without having to do it himself? I shake my head, trying to clear the fog of paranoia, but the doubt lingers, a bitter taste in my mouth. Finally, he sighs, a sound so weary it makes my chest tighten. "We'll talk when you're back," he says, his voice still devoid of any warmth, any clue to what he's feeling. Then the line goes dead, the abrupt click like a door slamming shut between us. I stand there, the phone still pressed to my ear for a moment, as if I can will him to come back. To explain, to give me something to hold on to. But there's nothing. Just the hollow hum of the disconnected call. Slowly, I lower the phone, my hand trembling as I set it on the counter. The kitchen feels smaller now, the walls closing in, the air thick with the weight of everything left unsaid. I don't know what to do with myself, don't know how to move forward from this moment. My confession, his cryptic response, it's all too much, a tangled mess I can't begin to unravel. So I do the only thing I can think of. I start to pack. I move through the house like a ghost, my footsteps slow and deliberate as I return to Ethan's old room. My overnight bag sits on the floor by the bed, half open, a silent reminder of how short this trip was supposed to be. I kneel beside it, pulling out the few items I'd unpacked, folding each one with a kind of meticulous care I don't usually have. A worn sweater, a pair of jeans, a crumpled t-shirt. Each piece feels heavier than it should, like I'm folding away pieces of myself along with the fabric. I smooth out the wrinkles with my palms, pressing down harder than necessary, as if I can delay the inevitable by lingering over these small, meaningless tasks. I don't want to leave this house, not yet, even though every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the corners, reminds me of what I've done. This place holds too many secrets now, too many ghosts, and I'm one of them. Once the bag is packed, I zip it shut with a sound that feels too loud in the stillness. I stand, slinging the strap over my shoulder, and take one last look around the room. The faded crayon drawings on the wall seem to stare back at me, a child's innocence mocking the mess I've made. I turn away, unable to bear it, and begin a slow walk through the house, my fingers trailing along the walls as I go. I pass through the narrow hallway, the living room with its dusty shelves, the kitchen where the chipped mug still sits on the table, a cold ring of coffee at the bottom. Each room carries echoes of Ethan's childhood, fragments of a life I've only glimpsed through stories and old photos. I can almost see him here, a boy with a wide, unguarded grin, running through these spaces with Julian at his side. My hand lingers on a doorframe, the wood rough under my fingertips, and I feel a strange, aching connection to both brothers, one through a love that's worn thin over years of quiet neglect, the other through a single, reckless moment of raw, unspoken need that I can't erase from my mind. I stop at the front door, my hand on the knob, hesitating. I don't want to leave, but I can't stay. This house, with its peeling paint and sagging porch, feels like a chapter I'm not ready to close, even as it suffocates me. I take a deep breath, the musty air filling my lungs, and turn the knob. The door creaks open, letting in a rush of cool, pine-scented air that stings my eyes. I step outside, pulling the door gently shut behind me, knowing that sometimes leaving is the first step toward finding a new beginning. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.